6 o'clock on August 20th, 2018. I'm calling the meeting to order. Would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Ford?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Teeter?
Here.
Councilmember Madera?
Present.
Councilmember Frank?
Present.
Councilmember Douglas? Present. Councilmember Huseman?
Present.
Councilmember Elliott?
Present.
Councilmember Hordiola?
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. For the record, everyone's here. We do have one vacant seat that we're going to take care of tonight. Now I'd like to ask everybody to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now if the staff will please pass around the microphone and allow the audience to introduce themselves.
Yeah, I'm Glenn Boldino.
Hello, I'm Aaron Herrera.
Michael Scanlon.
Good evening, I'm Heidi McNeely.
Good evening, Roger Japp.
Hello, I'm David Scott.
Anthony Stellato.
Kendall Gauthier.
Erica Davis.
Josue Huerta.
Stason Aikenoy.
Good evening, Dan Keogh.
Good evening, I'm Steve Davis.
Teresa Garcia.
Phil Noble.
Charles Dukes.
Kathy Blakeman, Human Resources.
All right, thank you all for being here tonight. The first item on the agenda is to work on filling this vacant seat up here. And I need to start out by, number one, thanking each and every one of you that have applied to serve in this capacity. And tonight's a tough night, not just for me, but for this entire council, because tonight we have 10 applicants and one seat. And it's not the kind of odds that I like to see up here with this council. So 9 people are going to walk away and one person's going to have a seat. But I think what needs to be made very, very clear is each and every one of you have the ability to serve on this council. And I would not want any of you to be detoured from participating on boards and commissions, running for a seat in the future because of the outcome tonight. Because I don't want 9 people to leave and go, I don't like the process. I don't like they did. I lost. It's not a win and a lose situation. You all are winners, and we want you to be a part of our community, every one of you. So please keep that in mind, that we're not picking winners and losers tonight. We are just going to do our best as a collective to fill the seat that needs to be filled that Councilman Diaz stepped down from. And I need to also point out that I want to thank those of you who had discussed and allowed Heidi McNeely to be able to go first because of her travel arrangement. I think that was very big of you. You could have said, no, wait your turn, and maybe knock you out because you're not going to make it in time type of thing. But that to me is very impressive in itself. That this council would not have chosen to adjust the schedule because it wouldn't have been fair. But you all, as potential candidates for this seat or applicants for this seat, I think did a bigger thing by letting her go first. So let me thank you for that as well. So we're going to be interviewing all of the applicants tonight for the Ward 4 vacancy. The city attorney is going to be doing some explaining here in a second. And the questioning, when you come up, I'm going to go with allowing the council members, seated council members, to ask those questions of you when you do come up. So I know all of you are going to start by going outside here in a little bit, and then one at a time coming through so that we can hear everybody's opinions separately and individually. So the council members will be asking those questions, and I'll have them do that at the appropriate time. But at this time, I'd like to have the city attorney go through some of this process so everybody is clear on how we're handling this tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. For the interview portion, I wanted to note that there are 10 applicants for the Ward 4 vacancy, and per Council Policy 21, each applicant is going to be asked 6 interview questions that were predetermined by Council last week, and all of those questions were shared with the applicants last week. The applicants are going to wait in a room across the atrium until they're called for the interview. The city clerk will be escorting applicants back and forth. Questions will be answered from the podium, and each question will have 2 minutes for an answer. The responses are going to be timed. The lights on the podium will indicate the time. They'll be green for the applicants, and they'll turn yellow at 30 seconds, and then red when the time is up. And at that point, the council will ask the next question. After the interview, the applicants are welcome to wait in the chambers, or they can go wait in the atrium until the time for the vote comes. And then as far as voting, at the end of the interviews, the council is going to first take a vote by using written ballots that we'll distribute. And the ballots identify each council member's name in the round of voting, and the council will then be able to fill in a blank next to the applicant's name that they want to vote for. The clerk's going to collect those ballots, and then the city attorney and city manager will count and read them aloud, including the council member's name and who they voted for. And then the clerk will tally those votes. The city charter requires a majority of the council in office. That means 5 votes. So if someone receives 5 votes on a ballot, then there will be a motion to confirm that appointment that will then be a roll call vote, which should match the voting. If no one receives 5 votes, then there will be another round of voting using those ballots, and that'll continue until someone's appointed. During that process, if it goes on long, council can choose to modify the voting process to perhaps remove the person with the least number of votes, or to remove everyone who got 1 vote or less, in some way to speed up the voting and move the process along. And then the appointed person will be sworn in at the end of tonight's meeting, at the end of administrative council business. So if there are no questions from council, I hope that explains the process well enough for you.
Yep. Anyone on council have any questions before I ask the applicants to all step out of the room? And then we'll start with Heidi. So thank you all. I'm sure somebody will show you to the room. There you go, our city clerk. Just follow her and we'll get with the process. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, Heidi, we're going to start down here with Jose Guardiola and have him start with the first question.
Sounds good. Good evening. First question, why are you applying to be on City Council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on City Council?
Great. Thank you. So I wanted to share a story about my why I'm applying. Back in the 90s, I was invited by my German teacher in high school to attend a wonderful program called Girls State. And at Girls State, I learned all about our legislative process, about running for election, and about things like Robert's Rules of Order. It was very eye-opening, but when I came back home, I was flipping through the channels on our local TV station in Aurora and came across the Aurora channel and found Frau Lindemann serving on City Council. It was at that time that my eyes were opened to the fact that she had been serving her students every day during the week as a teacher at my high school, but then also serving her community every night on City Council. So from that time on, I've had an interest to look at other opportunities to serve the city. So I have been fortunate to do some of those services here in Commerce City through my leadership on Commerce City Cultural Council, serving a full term there and ending that term in November of 2017 in a role of president as well as vice president. I also was honored to be part of the inaugural class of the Commerce City Leadership Course and learned a lot about the city, the history, the infrastructure that's currently present, as well as developed some great relationships during that time. I'm a healthcare professional. I'm a nurse by trade, and I work in healthcare. I've been working in healthcare for 18 years. Have developed some great skills there in things like writing policies and procedures, publishing for peer-reviewed journals. I also am really data-driven and data-focused, so I tend to make decisions based on the facts and the evidence that's available. I do feel like coming to this opportunity, I come very unbiased. I'm not coming with any set agenda. I would be honored to serve alongside all of you and to help make decisions that are best for the city. So I did bring a copy of my resume. If at all you're interested or have time to look at it, I would love to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Crystal, question 2.
Good evening, Heidi. What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
Yeah, great question. So as many of us know, there are challenges physically with the design of our city, with the Rocky Mountain Arsenal being right in the middle, along with the railroads and other things that are potential barriers. I do recognize that, but I see so many more strengths within our city and so many opportunities for us to leverage those relationships between the north and the south parts of our city. So the South, with the rich history that we have here, with the Arsenal, with the other things, there's been a lot of great work that you guys have done as City Council and that the voters have supported with the travel and improving the highways and roadways to make that more accessible to get to and fro, as well as things like the Paradise Pool and the other improvement projects that are drawing residents from the north to the south. I also think we have huge opportunities with the potential future growth of the Greyhound Park area and as well as the growth in the northern parts of the city. I do still see a lot of residents in the north who do travel further north for services. So really being mindful about how we build and develop the infrastructure and the businesses here in our community to make sure that our residents want to stay and want to visit all parts of the city. So.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Thank you. What do you believe to be the 3 most pressing challenges or concerns in the Commerce City community?
Great. So 3 of the top ones that I see, one is economic development within the city. So really working to bring in businesses, not just restaurants and retail, but all types of businesses, including businesses that will provide job opportunities for our residents. So I think that's a big one. I hear a lot of that talk, especially in Ward 4, but I think it's relevant all over. Continuing to make sure that we are up with the times and that we're competitive with our surrounding cities and neighborhoods, and really just creating a strong economy. Number 2, I know there's a lot of talk. You guys have been talking about it on City Council. I'm hearing a lot of chatter on social media and things like that about oil and gas industry. So I definitely think that is going to be a challenge. There are strong opinions on both sides of that debate. And so as City Council, I know you guys have a hard position to really weigh those pros and cons and to make an informed decision, but make a decision that's best for our community. And then third are and this might be because of where I'm at as a parent and with my age of children, is the education opportunities that we have for our children, and making sure that we're supporting both Adams 14 and Brighton 27J. I think we are struggling, I know, in our schools to retain high quality and talented teachers and to recruit them and to just make sure that we are providing enough financial support and other resources for our schools and for our children to succeed, not just now, but in the future. So those are the top 3 that I am focused on right now.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Heidi. Number 4, what do you see as the 3 biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Yep. So it's funny because definitely some of the challenges I also see as some of our biggest opportunities. So growth is the number 1 opportunity that I see within our city. We still have a lot of land that's undeveloped in the northern parts of the city. We're seeing tons of growth with residential growth especially, but a lot of opportunity up there. And I think that's huge. I think as the city staff, the city planners, as well as our residents, and as well as businesses that are coming in, we have a huge opportunity to capitalize and really think about what we want our community to look like over the next 20 and 30 years and how we want to develop that. And so that's, I think, a huge opportunity, and it's very exciting. Number 2 opportunity is the infrastructure. So how can we make sure that we're building a strong enough infrastructure to support that growth that we're going to see? And with that, how can we leverage the relationships with the surrounding cities and other partners that we have? So what things does Brighton have that we don't have that we can leverage working relationships with so we don't have to develop it? But what things are they lacking, or what things are Denver lacking that are on our borders that we can also be mindful about and intentional about when we're doing our planning? And then third, I really am honored to live in this city, and I think the history and the rich culture that we have here are huge assets and opportunities for us to leverage. I love that we are being very mindful about open space and parks and those types of things. And so I think we're doing a great job of recognizing the assets that we have and continuing to use those and leverage those moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rick?
Good evening. What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on the city council?
Great. So many of you know I reached out to several of you and had conversations either via email or phone, as well as with some of the city staff. And I made sure that I met with Paolo early on in my decision process to really get an idea of the expectations of city council. And I think my biggest concern initially coming on was the time commitment. And as you know from tonight, I have travel arrangements. I absolutely appreciate the flexibility of all the other applicants to allow me to attend and participate first. I want to reassure you that we have thought a lot about that within my own family, as well as you all presented a very clear picture of those expectations. And I wouldn't be applying if I thought that was going to be a barrier. So I feel like that is no longer a concern. Based on a few of your conversations, still it was a bit shocking, even though you knew about some of the commitments, actually how much time you spend on council. So we know that we will have to make some compromises here and there. I've already been mindful about what things I may have to flex within my professional role, and there is opportunities for me to make adjustments as needed. I do want to be transparent and let you know in case that is a concern. I don't travel a lot for work, but I did look forward to the next 16 months just so that I could be thinking about that. And there are 6 Mondays that I have potential conflicts. That includes one Monday that we're planning to go to Walt Disney World next summer. So that is what I would foresee being a potential issue, but I don't foresee more than that. Most of my travel and professional commitments, I am able to decline or rearrange as needed, and I know those in advance. For example, this trip tonight was planned about 3 months ago, so I just couldn't make changes at this point. But I wanted to make sure that if that is a concern, that I was transparent and you knew about that. The only other concern I have is that it's only 16 months. Normally you have 4 years to figure this out. There's a huge learning curve, I know, and so it's a short time. I don't know that that's necessarily a concern. I think that's an awesome opportunity, but it is something to consider. So.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, Nicole?
So what does a quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
Great. So as I was thinking about this, I broke it down in my mind to really come up with what that definition means for me. And with my role in the healthcare industry, quality is never discussed outside of the context of safety. We talk about quality and safety in patient care, and I really see that as being a huge piece of a quality community for a lifetime, is that we have safe neighborhoods, that people are proud to live here, and that they feel comfortable living here. Community for me is all about that hometown feeling. And I am so excited in the last 5 years that I've lived here in Commerce City. I am a Colorado native, and I was born and raised in Aurora. And moving to Commerce City, I was worried about getting that sense of community and connection. And it happened very quickly for my family. We love our neighbors, we love our neighborhood, and we love this city. I love spending time in the city and serving the city in the ways that I've been able to do so far. And so I think it's really important that people feel connected, and that's a huge piece of the community, that they're proud, they know the history that's here, and they feel connected. And then for a lifetime is the fact that change is inevitable. We know that there's constantly going to be change, so how can we be mindful and intentional and deliberate about the choices that we're making today to ensure that we can be a quality community for the next generation and generations to come?
Thank you. That will take you through our 6 questions. I want to wish you a good trip. Sorry that you can't stay, but we're glad you were able to come in and at least interview with us, and we'll let you know of the outcome.
Okay, thank you. And I
Thank
can
you.
be here till 8:30, so
Okay, great.
if
Hang
that's
out
helpful,
for a
I
while.
can stay. Thank you guys so
And,
much.
and
for
you
the
don't have
opportunity.
to leave the room. You're more than welcome to sit down now that yours is finished.
Okay.
So you can watch everybody else up to the time you have to leave.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you have a very hard decision. You have awesome candidates, so good luck.
All
And
right.
I will support the decision 100% regardless of what that outcome is.
We
So
appreciate
I know
that.
you won't go wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Ford, Ms. McNeely gave me her resume that I'll distribute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we will welcome Stephen Davis, and we're going to go through these questions one at a time. I'll have the council read them off to you. We're going to start with question number 1 with Oscar Madera.
How you doing?
Evening.
Why are you planning to be on the city council? And how is your experience and background relevant to being on the city council?
Well, I've been in public service as far back as I can remember. Pretty much since I was a teen, I was a police cadet serving up in Boulder County. And after that, I joined the U.S. Army right out of high school after I graduated. I spent 3 years in the Army. After I left the Army, I went straight into law enforcement here in Colorado. And that was for the next 40 years. During that time, I rose to the rank of chief of police and did all kinds of duties within the police departments that I served. I also served as a current chairman for the Private Investigator Association of Colorado. I worked with FEMA as a disaster assistance manager, where I responded to locations of disaster throughout the U.S. and helped police and fire departments financially get back together after they were devastated. And I've just always been in public service. I am currently the security leader at my church, and have been there for over a year. And it's just something that I've always done and that I enjoy doing, reaching out to my community, being part of my community. And I think that experience has taught me a lot about not only integrity and honesty, but how the system works and how you need to be there for the people.
Thank you. Jose.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
There's definitely some division there. Not only culturally divided, but also geographical. And geographical, I mean, we have about 4 miles from one subdivision to the next subdivision, and in between that is industrial. I'm tired of hearing, I live in Reunion, I live in Old Town. We live in Commerce City. And to bring those two together, this board and boards before that have done tremendous work in doing that. And proof of that is, our brand new rec center up in North Range, the stadium over here, and a lot of things that you as the board have done. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think there's the division there, and I think that people just need to know that there's things on both sides that can bring us together, and so there's work to do there. But my thoughts on that are simply that people don't know what's on either side, and it's our job as city leaders to show them and to bring things to our city to make that happen.
Great, thank you. Crystal?
Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening.
What do you believe to be the 3 most pressing challenges or concerns in the Commerce City community?
You've probably heard this before, but I think the first one is obviously retail and getting things to do in our town to bring people here. Every day, our kids, our families are going to Northfield to shop, to see movies. They're going to Brighton to shop, to see movies. They're doing very little in Commerce City. Now, they are doing things in Commerce City, but that is something that is a concern of mine. We need to build economic development to bring families together. I think that infrastructure is another concern of mine. 270 at any given time of the day or night is horrendous. We have a lot of growth coming in to Commerce City, and we need to make sure that our roads are prepared for that growth. I also think that's transportation is also in there. I think that the RTD and the light rail needs to come here. We have DIA right in our own backyard. People come through Commerce City to go to the airport. They leave the airport, they come out of Commerce City. We need to be prepared to make sure that they stop in Commerce City, they spend their money, they spend the night in Commerce City, but more importantly, that they stay here and live here.
Great, thank you. All right, Benjamin.
Thank you. What do you see as the three biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Well, I'm going to go right back to my three concerns, I think are also the three biggest opportunities. I think that, again, this board has showed that the opportunities are vast. The DIA corridor, the Tower Road widening, the Highway 2 widening, Highway 85 is just ample with opportunities to bring business and families here. I think that also I mentioned the RTD and the light rail. I mean, we need to make sure that we are ahead of that before people start moving here. I think those opportunities are right in front of us. And again, the concerns that I had are the opportunities to fix those concerns.
Great, thank you. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Mr. Douglas.
Okay, number 5. What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on
I
City
don't
Council?
really have any personal concerns. I've been on enough boards to understand how the board works. I guess I would just submit that no matter what happens tonight, I know that this board, from what I've seen from meetings that I've attended, is one of the best boards I've seen. It's cohesive, it's respectful of each other, and I would just hope that I would like to be your next council person, but I hope that whoever you pick, you maintain that. The people depend on it. You know, you sit up there and you work together, but here's who we're working for, the people out there. So I really don't have any concerns. I just hope that you keep doing what you're doing and move this city forward.
Great, thank you. Rick.
Thank you. Number 6, what does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
You know, those three words are exactly what they say. I live in Buckley Ranch. My neighborhood are all three of those words. Not a lot goes on in my neighborhood with neighbors that don't know what's going on. And if anything happens, good or bad, everybody's there for them. And that is what I see as those three words. I would love to see that for all of Commerce City. My neighborhood, to me, is what Commerce City should be. People depending on people, people in crisis going across the street and talking to each other, people coming together, people having barbecues, people babysitting their kids, watching their kids when something happens, babysitting. That's what it should be, and it should be for a lifetime, and it shouldn't be divided on one side of town or the other. It should be as one Commerce City. I would love to see that because I know it exists at 58th and Monaco just as it does in Buckley Ranch.
Good. Great. Thank you. And that will conclude the questions for Mr. Davis. We appreciate you applying and coming in this evening. And you're more than welcome to take a seat, and we'll get the next applicant in here, and we'll keep moving through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Board. Thank
Absolutely.
you to everybody that's attended. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. All righty. The next applicant, I'm sure, is on his way, will be Aaron Herrera. Good evening, Aaron.
Hello, good evening.
So we're going to jump right into these questions, and I'm going to have the council ask them, and I'll have Nicole or Councilwoman Frank start with the first question.
Okay.
Good evening. So why are you applying to be on the city council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on the city council?
Thank you. I'm applying for city council. Bottom line is I care about this community and the direction in which it heads. And it's something I've been kind of shooting for nearly 2 decades. Ever since my government class in high school, I've been interested in government. That's why during college I sought a degree in political science at the University of Northern Colorado. While getting my degree, I worked on a city council campaign for Pamela Shattuck with the city of Greeley. That was my first experience with a city council campaign, and I, in addition to my bachelor's degree in political science, I have a master's degree in political science from the University of Colorado, Denver, with an emphasis in politics and public policy. So, to be quite frank, I didn't get these degrees to shingle roofs. You know, I like politics. I think it's interesting and it's good to be involved, and I am a member of the Planning Commission, an alternate member of the city's Planning Commission. And I was the vice chair of the Adams County Board of Adjustment from 2013 to 2015. And I'm currently the secretary on the Adams County Planning Commission. So, in addition to all those things, I have 4 years experience in municipal government management, and that I think qualifies me for this position. I've seen it from the staff side, and I thoroughly understand the political side of things as well.
Thank you. Councilman Madera.
What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
You know, I think they're inextricably tied together. You know, there's an old saying that a rising tide should lift all boats in the harbor. And I think vice versa is also true, meaning if Northern Range does well, I think the core city or historic city should also do well. And I think you folks have been tasked with a delicate balancing act. You know, all the resources can't go to historic Commerce City, or conversely, the Northern Range. You know, you'll have to be very mindful of that, because there's 2 different parts of the city. There's actually a lot of different parts, such as Derby and Irondale and all that stuff, DuPont and everything. So I guess, in summary, I think it's about balancing. And for example, if we got the brand new rec center in the Northern Range and the old rec center was left alone, I would have a problem with that. I'm glad the city decided to do something for both recreation centers, and thank you all for the recreation center. It's great.
Great, thank you. Councilman Guardiola.
What do you believe to be the 3 most pressing challenges or concerns in the Carmen City community?
You know, when I was watching the last council meeting on TV, there was a lady, I think she did a pretty good job of summarizing some of the problems the city is currently facing. She had brought up some of the taxes in the Northern Range and how her payment had gone up $600 in the 8 years she lived in Frontera or something like that. And I think it's tough with the taxes. You know, I pay them just the same as everyone else, and they will eventually sunset. You know, I'm waiting for my metro district to pay off its debt that they had to build Buffalo Mesa back in the day. And I think 30 years from now, the tax picture will be a lot different in the Northern Range, and I'm looking forward to that. So, taxes, I think, are one thing, and in the Northern Range, there's a little bit of, I don't want to necessarily call it hysteria, but maybe a little controversy brewing about potential oil and gas development, and that I think should be on anybody's radar who wants this particular position. And I personally am not terribly concerned about oil and gas development. I worked in the city of Fort Lupton, and we were very accustomed to oil and gas development in Fort Lupton and Weld County, and if it's done safely and impacts are mitigated, I don't have a problem with it. But I also understand the state has jurisdiction over that, but it's a hot button topic for residents, and I even know people that in our community that are putting their houses up for sale because they're concerned about oil and gas development. So I think that was only two. Let me give you a third. I think District 14 is very problematic. They've had a lot of problems for a long time, basically since I was in school, and that's a major problem.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Elliott.
Good evening, Aaron. What do you see as the three biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Thank you. I think there's a lot of opportunity all around the city. I think the Northern Range has pretty significant infrastructure to facilitate development along 104th, 120th, Tower Road, all the way down to the 7-Eleven by the parking place. And I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunities for the city to increase its sales tax base and property tax base. I also think the old dog track is pretty exciting. It's my understanding there is a developer now. It'll be nice to see that all come to fruition. And I'm also a big believer in infill opportunities for development, because I think infill is a way to avoid the costly metro districts, which a lot of folks complain about in the Northern Range. And I think that's a part of smart development. I think that was three.
All right, thank you. Councilman Huseman?
Thank you. What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on the city council?
I don't have any concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Councilman Douglas?
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. What does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
I love this question. I think it's a doozy in a way, but I think quality community for a lifetime is about just a good quality of life. And I hate to use the cliche, live, work, and play. I think that's what makes a quality community, when generations can live, work, and play in a community for many, many generations.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Herrera. You're more than welcome to take a seat in the audience, and we will get to some more applicants, but we really appreciate you applying for the position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next applicant will be Roger Japp. I'm sure he'll be along shortly. Good evening, Mr. Japp.
Good evening.
I'm going to start out by asking you some questions here, and we're going to start with Mayor Pro Tem Teeter.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Why are you applying to be on the City Council, and how are your experiences and background relevant to being on the City Council?
So I appreciate that question. It's obviously the core of why all of us are here. I think that civic engagement, wanting to be a part of our community, do more to help our citizens will be the theme of what you hear across probably 10 different answers to this question tonight. Mine's very similar. I recently moved to the city. I moved into Commerce City in 2014, and I became a commuter that was commuting downtown to Denver every day. And then a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to take a job with a service here in the city, and so now I actually work and I live in Commerce City, and it's where I spend my entirety of time. And so my goal and my vision for wanting to apply for this position is to engage folks in economic development. I think that we have some major areas within Ward 4 as well as the city as a whole that we need to work on as well. You know, being one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the state of Colorado, I think that it's important for us to become involved in that growth, in that economic development. We don't want to just see residential development, obviously. We want to see commercial growth. We want to be able to have areas for the folks that live within our city to go and to patronize. We want to make sure that we have the optimal public safety for our citizens. I work in public safety. Public safety has been my career for the last 25 years. And so I want to ensure that our citizens have the absolute best public safety that they can. And so I think that this council can be very integral with that.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Roger, what are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
You know, working in the city the way I do in public safety, I see both sides of both ends of the city on a daily basis, and it is an interesting dichotomy of socioeconomic status of folks that just demographically live within those areas of the city. And I think the best way that I've thought about this question for the last week on how I was going to answer it, and I kind of view it as a cousin relationship when it should be more of a spousal relationship. I see two ends of the city that I don't think that we do a good job as the city combining, ensuring that it's not separate and that it is equal. I want to engage not just the folks that are in Ward 4, but those folks that live in the other wards that are within the city and the city as a whole. I think it's important to firm that, engage both ends of the city, and work on making a much more cohesive relationship.
Great, thank you. Councilman Madera.
What do you believe to be the three most pressing challenges or concerns in the Commerce City community?
So number one, I think I've touched on it, and I know that you're going to hear this again, I'm sure, but the lack of economic development or commercial growth within the north area. And I think we could say that as a city as a whole. There's a lot of growth potential within this city. And I think that as a council member, I would be one of the biggest champions and for growth, for economic development within the city. We've seen in the last 6 months on the north end of the city, I think in the 4 years that I've lived here, we've seen the most commercial growth along the 104th and 120th corridors. I think that there's a lot of room to continue that growth and to expand. The second one I wanted to highlight was infrastructure as it pertains to city streets, city highways. I think the 104th expansion project, the Tower Road expansion project, the Highway 2 expansion project have all been great. They've been highly needed and necessary for the folks that live on both ends of the city, trying to traverse the city, but there's more that can be done. If you look towards Irondale, towards the 88th Avenue, Rosemary, if you try to drive down either of those streets at 5 p.m., you're going to sit there for a while. And I think that those are areas that we should be focused on as well. And then third, I would say public safety. As a member of the Citizens Public Safety Advisory Board, I've been able to work with Chief Nichols as well as the police department to see their engagement, particularly since they engaged in 2016 with the DOJ reform. It's been an amazing to see where they've gone from start to finish in those 2 years. Chief Nichols has done a fantastic job. I can't say enough good things about the man, and I want to see that further expand.
Great, thank you. See, Councilman Guardiola.
What do you see as the three biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Growth. I think kind of encompasses the first part of that question. There's, in the land use map that I was just studying, it's amazing to see the amount of IGA that we have for land use and growth within the city, particularly to the northeast. And we really need to be capitalizing on that. It's a prime area for commercial development. Along with that growth is the commercial development. We need to be enticing those large corporate businesses. Amazon just built a huge complex in Thornton. It would have been a fantastic thing for us to be able to land here in Commerce City. We have the rail lines, we have the highways, we have the ability, I think, to sustain those projects. We need to go out and find them and work towards capturing them and bringing them into the city. And I think just becoming a leader within the metro area. Commerce City is growing. We've said that. It's becoming a player in the metro area, which is new for this city. And I think that Commerce City can be a leader within the metro area, on the likes of Littleton, on the likes of Westminster, Thornton, and become a contender and have a seat at the table to become a voice for the metro area.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Elliott.
Good evening, Roger.
Good evening.
What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on city council?
You know, so I'm a busy guy, obviously. I think we all are in these times with our families and our work commitments. But I live and work in the city. And so when I thought about this question of what concern do I have about this, I really couldn't come up with one. So I'm going to have to do the typical job interview question and say I don't have any concerns with this, because I really feel like I can manage the requirements of the position. My work schedule is very flexible since I make my own schedule, and have a supportive team where I work. And so I really, I'm going to be a Commerce City resident for life. We've already made that decision at home. We love where we live. We love Commerce City. We don't have any plans on leaving. So I think the longest way that I could have possibly gotten to none is what I just said.
Thank you. Mr. Huseman.
Thank you. What does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
So I think that quality community for a lifetime is just simply talking about the bedrock of our society, and that's our youth. Providing the educational, providing the encouragement, opportunities to our youth within the city to help them be successful. Let's be honest, they're going to be the next group of folks that are standing at this podium, sitting on that platform. We need to make sure that they have the opportunities to grow, that they have the opportunities to move forward, to learn. And so I think that quality community for a lifetime, that's what that means to me, is engaging the youth, working with the kids, providing them the opportunity, the education to ensure that they're successful so that they can thereby be successful for their community.
Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to take a seat here in the audience, and we'll get to the next applicant.
Thank you for your time.
We appreciate your application. Next applicant is Anthony Stellato. Good evening, Mr. Stellato.
Good evening, Mayor Ford, City Council. Thank you for interviewing me.
Yeah, thanks for applying. I'm going to start by having Mr. Douglas ask you the first question.
Good evening, Anthony.
Good evening, Steve.
All right, number one question. Why are you applying to be on the City Council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on the City Council?
I moved to Commerce City about 14 years ago, and I've witnessed tremendous growth in my community. I volunteer in several areas, Boy Scouts, Denver Police Department, but joining City Council will allow me to help shape my community for the future. I have worked in finance for over 2 decades, and it has taught me a great many things, like how to look at things differently, ask different questions. When you go through the budget, I write budgets for the last 2 decades for several companies. I help small companies in writing their budgets to forecast for the future. But for instance, when we were looking at E470 for hazardous waste movement, one of the questions I was thinking about the whole time is there something in the statute that allows you to do the opposite? Maybe say, this part of this road, maybe part of 120th, can have 0 hazardous waste movement on it. And I read the law, I can't tell because I'm not a legal advisor at all. But just asking different questions and determining alternative ways might help insight into things we don't know yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Teeter.
Good evening. What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historical city and the Northern Range?
The historical city and the Northern Range have vastly different needs, but both can benefit from each other. The established infrastructure of the historical city, along with the established industry, allows for a stable tax base, which would help the Northern Range lean on it in times when it's tough, in times when it's still growing. But through this growth and this tremendous opportunity we have in the North Range, the southern part, the historical city, will benefit tremendously in the future from the tax bases we will see from new businesses we bring in, from the new throughways we're going to have with our networking road systems. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Anthony, what do you believe to be the 3 most pressing challenges or concerns in the Commerce City community?
3 most pressing concerns. My first would be the biggest concern I've encountered all along is the high property tax we've seen in recent years. We continue to see high growth in the area. We see taxes are in my area are now for median homes over $5,000, which is a big change than it's been maybe 5-6 years ago, where it was more in the $3,000 range. Second is going to be schools and education. We don't have, with the higher cost of living, it continues to make it harder and harder to recruit and retain teachers for these schools, the high quality teachers, as we bring them in. It is prohibitive to someone living on a teacher's salary. And third, and I think this is very important, is the lack of retail and restaurants that we see up in that area. It kills me every time I see people going up to Brighton, going up to Prairie Center to go to Home Depot, to go to grocery stores, which has been alleviated with the King Soopers now, but clothing stores, restaurants. Go to Stapleton for the restaurants also. Even going out for a drink. We see a tap house coming in, which is going to be a nice addition. But all these purchases are accumulating taxes, which could stay in Commerce City and help our growth. And this is something which I know we're going to change. We just have to figure out how to make a change there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Madera.
What do you see as the 3 biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
3 biggest opportunities. I think the biggest one is our expansion and growth. We're looking at what is essentially a young city. We could shape it any way we want. We could shape the networking, the road network any way we want, create commercial and residential areas that's going to be very beneficial to years down the road when we have an older city. And we have that power now and that opportunity now to make those decisions. Second opportunity is economic growth. As a former business owner, I've lived through the ups and downs of owning a business, starting a business in this community. And I know a lot of the pain that businesses go through and ways, not just fiscal, other possible ways to bring businesses in, changing some everyday policies that we may not think interfere with business, which actually do interfere with business. And I want to stress that not every improvement has to be fiscal. It doesn't have to be a monetary incentive. There are other opportunities. Third, we have a very large soccer stadium. No, we have the largest and most state-of-the-art professional stadium and soccer complex in the world. And I know that because I read it on a website, and we know it's true. That is going to be a big draw. Soccer is becoming a much more accepted sport in this country. It is taking over more timeshare. And besides that, the sports arena will hold, I think, 27,000 seats at concerts. We can attract worldwide attention through soccer and benefit our residents in our community with local concerts. It's going to be a great draw going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Guardiola.
What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on city council?
Absolutely none. I get done with my job every day around 2:30. Stay a little later if I want to, but it's my choice. So I have the free time in the afternoons and the evenings. Every single volunteer thing I do, like Boy Scouts, I have already secured coverage. It was easy because people want to push for to benefit the city. They want to see positive growth in the city. They're willing to step up and help me out with that. Once again, I want to say that being on the city council would be a highlight for me because I live in the community for so long. I want to help it grow. I want to help mold it in the direction it needs to go. And it's not just my personal views. It is the views of what's best for the city. That's why you have a city council. You don't have one person running it. You have the city council to sit there and talk to and counsel Brian McBroom. And I would be honored if I was given that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Elliott.
Good evening, Anthony.
Good evening.
What does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
And you're right, Ms. Elliott, it is very hard to do this, especially for the first time. Quality community for a lifetime, when I break that sentence down, it's got a couple parts. Quality community means a place that you're happy to live, happy to bring other parts of your family to secure their roots. Invite friends up to secure their roots. I moved up here because a friend of mine lived in the community, and he said, it's going to be something. And that was back in 2004. So I moved up here, and I haven't been sad since. It is what I would call a quality community. I feel safe in my community. I feel happy with my neighbors. I feel that there's going to be growth that we don't even understand yet, that we're going to benefit from this years to come. And that ends as for a lifetime. What that means is not only do you feel safe, not only do you have all those benefits, not only do you want to move your family here, but any time in your life you have this. You have good preschools, you have good high schools, you have good places where teens can go so they're not being juvenile delinquents in parks per se. They have a place that they can meet. You have a good road system, so you can get to work. You have maybe places to work. You have places to retire. And you feel safe all along. You have good friends, and this community has really good people in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stellato. You're more than welcome to take a seat in the audience as we continue with this process. Next will be Philip Noble. Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for applying for this position, Mr. Noble.
Yes.
We're going to go through a process of asking you some questions, and just as we did those prior to you. We'll start with Mr. Huseman.
Thank you. Why are you applying to be on the city council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on the city council?
Okay, well, I'd like to apply some of the experience, work experience, education, et cetera, that I picked up in the last 46 years. I've been working with federal, state, county, and local entities, major corporations like Exxon, Monsanto, Georgia Tech, Hewlett-Packard. The past 9 years, I've been with the Adams County Workforce and Business Center. I retired in May as the director of the Workforce and Business Center. I've had productive relationships with all the educational development agencies in the county and participated in site selection meetings to attract companies to the Front Range. How is this relevant? I think I've worked with most of the entities that the city ends up working with, whether it's private or public. And one other minor detail is I'm pretty well versed in reading regulations and following policy set by the state, local areas, or the federal government.
Great, thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Phil. Number two, what are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
Well, in a way, I'm kind of a systems thinker, so I always look at things with that lens. We're part of a large system divided into municipalities with shared resources and regional challenges. First and foremost, in my mind, is water and having the proper levels of cooperation to preserve and protect it. As the logistic hub of the state, I think Commerce City plays a key role in assuring managed growth for all of the Front Range. So in a lot of ways, I think Commerce City is the key player in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Thank you. Number three, what do you believe to be the three most pressing challenges or concerns in Commerce City community?
Well, I also think of challenges as also being opportunities, so I might be repeating myself on the next question, but for me, the first one is water. Figuring out what the limit is of it for our growth and how many people we can, and industries we can support reasonably. How do we plan for it and how do we keep it safe, I think is number one. Number two, from a systems perspective, how do we manage the competing interests in this region right now? We have oil and gas, Aerotropolis, the spaceport was announced today. We have the Gaylord coming in. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the residents of Commerce City to take advantage of the employment opportunities that are going to be made available. And we have to somehow maintain all those things with sensible growth while maintaining clean air, water, and a desirable quality of life. For the fourth ward, I think in particular, there's a bit of a panic around fracking and the schools going to a 27J going to a 4-day work week, 4-day school week. So there is some pressure on housing prices and a slightly downward trend right now, and we see a lot of for sale signs around. I don't know what we can do about that, but it is of concern in the fourth ward.
Thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Phil, what do you see as the 3 biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Well, I'd say the first one is actually also a challenge. It's the convergence of the oil and gas area, Metropolis, Spaceport, Gaylord, business development around the airport, and the western side of Commerce City. It's not only it's also a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity. With all the development going, we need to coordinate with all of our local partners to make sure all the citizens of Commerce City have access to the thousands of new jobs that will be created, as I've said before. I'd like to see the image of the city change. Right now, it's kind of, when you say Commerce City, you think of the refinery. And it's got to be something more than that, because it's a great place to live. That's all there is to it.
Thank you. Mr. Madera.
What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on the city council?
Well, I really don't want to wear a tie anymore. Let's put it that way. That's one of. I actually had some medical issues that makes wearing a tie kind of chafe. But I don't care for them anyway. I hope, and I don't know this, but I hope that the city government believes wholeheartedly in participative democracy. I haven't seen anything that indicates anything contrary to that. But I like to have as much involvement as I can from the people that are affected by the decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Guardiola.
What does a quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
Well, I didn't know if this was a formal definition or a generic definition, so I think I have a couple of them. In a generic sense, I would see it as an elevated quality of life environment for all its citizens, whether they be near the cradle or near the grave. A place you can build your home and live comfortably in, I hope, for the rest of your life, if necessary. And specifically, and looking at the webpage here, it also appears to be a goal of the Quality Community Foundation, which has as its aim to support and obtain funding for post-secondary education, youth recreational programs offered by and through the city. So I see those activities as actually being key to retaining our population, having people stay here, live in the community, and grow with it.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
You are more than welcome to take a seat there in the audience.
All right.
While we finish conducting our interviews.
All right, thank you.
But thank you for applying. All right, Michael Scanlon is next. All right, welcome, Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you.
We're going to start by asking you some questions, as we did those prior to you and those that are going to come after you. I just have to figure out who asked the last question. Jose. All right, Councilwoman Elliott.
Good evening, Michael. Why are you applying to be on the City Council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on the City Council?
Well, to start with, the reason for applying, since I ran for this position initially, I got 42% of the vote in that three-way race. And frankly, as cheesy as it may sound, I did feel an obligation to the 1,200 plus people that voted for me to step forward and at least be one candidate to fill that position. I think I don't know if you guys had a chance to see my letter, but I think it addresses the experiences part, why, pretty well. Upon losing, I had to decide what I wanted to do next, and I decided to just plug in other places where I could. So I joined the Adams 14 Education Foundation. I got on the South Adams County Water and Sanitation District Board. I was part of the Reunion Metro District Board. I'm no longer on that. And then I found out there had never been a chamber. And I was really stunned by that. What I've done in the 2 years since then kind of speaks for itself, but went around, signed up 100 businesses in 100 days to get it started. And I really genuinely believed at the time that it would, in addition to all the other reasons why you need a chamber, I thought it would help with the whole core city versus northern range piece as well. And I've learned a lot, frankly, I'm down on this end of town all the time now. I'm talking to businesses and getting a sense of what goes on here. So I feel like the chamber experience has really lent a lot of wisdom to what goes on in this city and what the city needs.
Great, thank you. Mr. Huseman.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
Yeah, I wish there was more of a relationship there. First, I will say that the Northern Range needs more attractions, and I'm not casting aspersions at anyone or blaming anyone that we don't have them. I don't know that it's council's job to come up with them, but from the standpoint of why don't people in Core City come up to Northern Range and visit us more, it's because there's no reason to come up there, right? I mean, unless you're coming to my house. We can meet at Dion's and have a slice of pizza. We just don't have a lot of attractions up on the North Range. I would love to see more interaction between the two. Like I said, I come down to Core City all the time, and I think Chamber's done its part to help kind of bring those two parts of town together. My thoughts are that we need to get the relationships tighter in any way we can, and I hope the Chamber's helping on that end, frankly.
Great, thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Michael. Number 3, what do you believe to be the 3 most pressing challenges or concerns in Commerce City community?
Yeah, so I don't know if any of these directly relate to council, maybe the third one, but I'll just tell you frankly, I think the school situation is a challenge on both ends of town. And I don't think that's the fault of anyone in this room, but I think that's just, you hear it in the community all the time, and I think you see that reality. I think the lack of retail up on the North Range isn't, I know that doesn't come as a shock to any of y'all. I know you guys are doing everything you can to address that problem. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying about not having any real attractions up there to draw people to the Northern Range. And then the image piece. And the image piece is a tough one, you know. It's legacy stuff that goes back way before any of us were born, you know. But I think that's something that it's a chamber we've tried to address, and we hope to continue to be able to help try to raise the city's image through the chamber. And I think that's one of the challenges that we face as a city, is just trying to get the rest of the metro area and beyond thinking of us in a better light.
Great, thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Hi, Michael. What do you see as the 3 biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
So I think one big one's infill, right? We've got a lot of properties around town that could be redeveloped. And I think particularly with Core City, when you look at real estate values around the area, boy, that area is just prime for development. And it may not happen in the next year or two, but I really see Core City going through a transformation down on this end, because of real estate values and the economic reality. I think cannabis is a huge opportunity. I feel like we kind of missed the boat a little bit because of Adams County as far as getting out the gate. But I continue to believe that's a growth industry, and there's a tremendous opportunity there to help on the economic side. And I think the third one is the image piece. I think from the standpoint of image, I don't want to say there's nowhere to go but up, but we've got a lot of tremendous opportunity if we could just get people to come to, say, the Northern Range, to come to Buffalo Run, to say, oh, okay, I didn't realize Commerce City's really changing. Commerce City's got all that land above the airport. I didn't know that. I think that's a tremendous opportunity if we can get out there and tell that story.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Good evening, Michael. What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on the city council?
Well, I think personally, my only concern is that I'm more of a morning guy, and I know sometimes you guys go late into the night, so I would roll with that. I would adapt to that, and I think it's just fair to throw out there that my income situation continues to be a struggle. So that could be potentially down the road an issue. And I just want to make everyone aware of that if I don't get my act together with the chamber and really get it going, I could be on the job market at some point here. And that's something you all should know when you consider this.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Madera.
What does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
And so again, with this answer, I don't want anyone to take this personally because I'm not taking a shot at anyone. I like that slogan. There's nothing wrong with that slogan, perhaps. Let me share with you this story. The last 2 times I was here, I was wearing my Caps jersey. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Washington Capitals and the NHL franchise, but for 43 years, that franchise was at the bottom. They were laughed at. They were considered a joke. Nobody wanted to play there. And slowly and surely, they built themselves into a championship team. And they now have a championship mentality, and they now have a championship team where guys want to come and play there, and they're well poised going into the next season. Not only that, but they got a Stanley Cup. My only problem with that is the word quality. If you vote me on board, I'm probably going to be a pain. You're probably going to get sick of me at some point. I'm going to constantly be pushing. I'm going to constantly be driving because I won't settle for anything less than top-notch, first-rate, championship mindset. And that's my only concern with that. I would change it to championship community for a lifetime, or first-rate community for a lifetime, or greatest community ever for a lifetime. And that's just the way I think, and that's what I would strive for if I was on council.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate you applying for the position. Please take a seat in the audience, and we'll continue with our interviews.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Charles Dukes. No problem. Yeah, go ahead. If anybody needs a quick break, now's the chance. It's all right. Go ahead. All right. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for applying for this position. We're going to go through a process and have council asking you some questions.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Guardiola.
Good evening. Why are you applying to be on the city council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on city council?
So again, thank you for interviewing, and I'm applying because of my interests. I'm an invested community member. I'm on the Quality Foundation Community Board, and I want to give back to my community. I have a passion and desire for public service, hence my job right now with Denver, or the city of Denver, and my history of working in education policy. I've worked at the federal level in terms of working with initiatives at the federal level. I've also worked at the state and at the local and school level. And so I hope to bring that experience of systems building, systems thinking to help our community. And it's the reflection of a community shows up in our schools. If children are struggling with home economics, you're going to see it in the free and reduced lunch rates. If children are struggling with families not able to find jobs, you're going to see it at the school. If there's not enough mental health community supports in the community, you're going to see it at the school. And so I'm bringing that experience here today to really participate and support, and also, just bringing that experience to help support.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Elliott.
Good evening, Charles. What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
That's a great question. As I wrestled with that question, I thought about a couple things. The first is that when we think about core Commerce City and the Northern Range, I want to say there's areas for improvement. The big piece is that it's hard to say there's a relationship, but there's not opportunities for both areas to actually come together and begin to celebrate and be a part of a bigger Commerce City. So as I think about the relationship, one of the big things that I would love to see as a city council is think about the marketing campaign. It's okay to have a city with neighborhoods within a city, but ultimately we want to have one city and opportunities for us to come together and support the city of Commerce City. The other big piece is just providing additional opportunities. As you know, there's a lot of opportunities that are happening across the city in different neighborhoods, but we don't have an opportunity to come together more often, or love that to come together more often.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hughesman.
Thank you. What do you believe to be the three most pressing challenges or concerns in the Commerce City community?
This is a great question. As my experience and as a resident in Commerce City, I want to say there's three big challenges. The first is access to affordable childcare. The second is quality schools and high quality schools in Brighton, Twins, 7J, as well as Adams, as well as the other school districts in our area. The other big piece is providing opportunities for restaurants and as well as opportunities for community to gather. I think that's a key piece. And when I think about affordable childcare, we have childcare providers in our neighborhood. However, it's not affordable for all families. And so what's happening is now a lot of families are choosing to have their friends, neighbors, and family actually take care of their child. And that's okay, as long as a city, we can provide resources to the FFM providers so that those children still get quality care. When we think about the high-quality performance schools, as you know, a lot of the ratings just came out for the local area school districts, and it's unacceptable. It's generations of now of students being taught and graduating, not actually prepared for the workforce, not actually prepared for the 21st century skill that's actually coming pretty quickly. In the next 20 years, next 15 years, they're going to face a whole separate amount of demands. And I'm colorblind, so I see these buttons. So which one am I on track? Or I'm good. Okay.
You're doing good.
The other piece is just a place of gathering. As we think about restaurants north of 104th, it's a challenge that it's an opportunity for us to really rethink how do we have places of gathering that are not necessarily sit-down restaurants. We're really thinking about fast casual opportunities because if you have kids, you know that not everyone in the family wants the same pasta at the same night, right? Some people want Italian, some maybe want Chinese food. So it's a hard idea to say we're going to sit to one place and actually eat together. But we need the opportunity for other places, and I think of Stanley Aviation as an example, as places like that where you can actually have multiple restaurants within the same spot.
Great, thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dukes. All right, number 4. What do you see as the three biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
So I think the three biggest opportunities, and this is why I actually chose to move out to Commerce City and Reunion specifically, to the subdivision Reunion, because there's a big opportunity with growth, there's opportunity with affordability, and there's opportunity with education if we do it well. So when we think about growth, we look east. Every city probably in Colorado is looking for opportunities to grow, and there's a lot of them are landlocked. We're fortunate not to be landlocked, where we can look east and look at opportunities there. But I want to mention how important it is, even though growth is an opportunity, if we don't do it well and we don't really think through how to continue to provide resources to core Commerce City and only focus on opportunities that are out east, we face gentrification. And that's something that we as a city council, you don't want to do that. You want to be able to think through how do we continue to provide resources where it's where the old dog track was at, but also we don't want to force and push out neighbors who have been here for a number of years and have committed and dedicated and invested into Commerce City. So, but growth is a tremendous opportunity with northern part of Commerce City, as well as growth and redevelopment in core Commerce City. Affordability. When I mention affordability, here in Commerce City, this is a destination for a number of families, a number of people, because houses are affordable. The apartments are affordable. And so as we think about opportunities, how do we continue to create policies that don't push and don't up the rents so that people have opportunity to continue to want to move out here? Because it's an attractive place, and we have an opportunity to really seize on the attractiveness of Commerce City. Then education, as we think about education in Commerce City, because of the size of the districts here, it's possible to make real change. In some districts that are 90,000 students or 100,000 students, it's hard to make. It's like moving a semi versus a Honda Civic, right? We have an opportunity, if people are in place in the right positions, we can actually make change in education. And that's critically important because without a strong base within our community, it's hard to have a strong workforce.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on the city council?
So I don't have any specific concerns. I am excited about the opportunity. I think I can contribute to the city council, my diverse, different background and my diverse opinion. As I think about my job, I do work for the city of Denver, and so there will be some votes that I cannot cast because of the partnership with the city, and so I have to recuse myself from some of those votes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Frank?
What does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
So quality community for a lifetime, this is something we wrestle with on a Quality Community Foundation board as well, where we really think about quality community is not just access and scholarships to post-secondary, but it's an opportunity where you have a healthy, you have a safe, and you have a diverse environment, meaning diversity not just in opinion, but also diversity in housing. You have apartments, you have larger homes, you have starter homes, but ultimately you also have an opportunity for every family to grow, a family to feel safe, and a family that's healthy, because health and obesity, it connects to community support, it connects to community environments, and so that's my big pillars: healthy, safe, educated, and diverse community.
Great. Thank you very much for applying. I welcome you to sit in the audience as we continue with this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David Scott. Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for your application. We're going to get started by having the council ask you the 6 questions that you were given. We'll go with Mr. Madera.
Why are you applying to be on the city council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on the council?
I come from a big military background family, and I never did serve, but as I get later in life, I try to find other ways to serve in the community. This looked like a perfect opportunity, though I don't know that I'm the kind of guy that would really run a campaign for this office, but with an opportunity to step in and bring my expertise or my experiences. I've been an independent contractor, commission-only salesman majority of my life, on and off between being a bartender. I worked for a company called National Write Your Congressman. It's a legislative research firm, and we interviewed small businesses all across the region that I managed about government, local, but more state and federal stuff. And I really enjoyed digging in to how it works, and I think I can bring a different perspective from all the businessmen and women that I've talked to across the country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Guardiola?
What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
I think we've got two very economically and socially diverse communities when you talk about the two of them. And I think it's important to bring them together. And I really believe that it starts with our youth and with tapping into the faith communities. I think there's a whole lot of stuff going on that if we can tap in through some of the people that are already doing things like that. And I think we have a challenge, but I also think it's a tremendous opportunity to bring these two communities together and learn from each other and grow each other.
Thank you. Councilwoman Elliott?
Good evening, David. What do you believe to be the 3 most pressing challenges or concerns in the Commerce City community?
I would say affordable housing, education, and obviously attracting business. We've got a huge growing area here, fast-growing city, and there's a lot of opportunity here. But I think education's a big one. I grew up as a military brat, as I said, and before, most of it before the Department of Education. And I think we can address educational issues from maybe a different standpoint. I think it's something that we need to focus on more locally rather than the federal and state levels that we've been seeing lately.
Thank you. Mr. Huseman.
Thank you. What do you see as the three biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Obviously, economic development, increasing the tax base. There's still vast areas to develop and explore and grow, and also business opportunities as well. We have a really thriving economy. I think it's growing well, and I think the expectations are really high for where we're going, and I'm excited to be a part of it and watch it grow.
All right, thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, David. Let's see, question number 5. What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on city council?
If there's any, it might be the time. I'd coach soccer for Landmark Academy, so there's a time commitment there in the early evenings, late afternoons, early evenings. Other than that, I'm not real concerned about it. I'm self-employed, as I said. I run my own schedule, so I'm available for events and outside activities as well as these meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Number 6, what does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
I think as people progress through the circle of life, the need to change. I think it speaks to the young and the elderly. I think it's a great aspiration to have quality and to strive for it. I would just say it's important to make sure that everybody's needs are met as they grow in all areas, and I think it starts with the children, education and getting them involved.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your application. Tonight's a busy night for everyone in the room, and we're going to get through the process, but I invite you to join some of the other applicants in the audience, and we'll continue with our applications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Boldenau, thank you for applying for this position. We're going to get started by having the council members ask you some questions.
Okay.
We'll start with Councilwoman Frank.
Yes. So why are you applying to be on the city council, and how are your experience and background relevant to being on city council?
Well, let me talk to my background a little bit first. I started out in state government out of college. I spent about 5 years there, and then I went to private industry, excuse me, where I worked in government contracting for over 20 years, and then I went into intellectual property contracting for the balance of my time until I retired last a year ago in January. Excuse me. I'm applying because I think I bring a diverse set of ideas to the City Council, and I'd like to see the diversity of Commerce City become even stronger. So that's my basic premise for applying.
Great, thank you very much. Councilman Madera?
What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
Can you repeat that, please?
What are your thoughts on the relationship between the historic city and the Northern Range?
Well, I think that the city has grown outwards to the north and somewhat to the east, but I think the historic city still has a lot to offer overall for the city. One of the favorite things we have to do, usually about once a week, maybe a little less often than once a week, is come down to the historic city for dinner. We find it's a nice, refreshing change, and we like it down here.
Thank you. Mr. Guardiola?
What do you believe to be the three most pressing challenges or concerns in Commerce City community?
I think the most pressing challenges are safety, and I don't mean just safety from crimes. I think it's safety from our climate change. I think we need to do what we can as a city council to protect against climate change and to keep our residents healthy as we can keep them, because with what's been going on in the environment, we have a lot of unhealthy toxins that get released into our environment, and I think we need to suppress that as much as possible as a city council. Whatever we can do to help keep our families, the children, the seniors, all those in between, safe from toxins in the environment, we should be doing. And so I think a healthy environment is important. Education, I think we need to support our public education. One of the things in this country that has slipped backwards is our support to our public education, and I think it's important at the local level that we support that so that we can build this country back up again from an educational standpoint, because we've fallen behind in the world. So those are a couple of things. Our infrastructure, obviously, is another one. And things like the recreation center over at Bison Ridge are great. I've really enjoyed seeing that, and we just joined that recently, so we want to take advantage of it. We can't beat the price, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Elliott?
Good evening, Glenn. What do you see as the three biggest opportunities for Commerce City right now?
Well, I think there's an opportunity to bring in more businesses, like in the service industry in particular. I think Commerce City needs to have more restaurants that can compete with Brighton. For example, up at Prairie Center, they built a bunch of restaurants up there, and they're all chains, but they're places you can go and sit down and eat, and I think Commerce City needs to have things like that. Santiago's is going in across 120th, but that's technically in Brighton, so that's not a Commerce City business. I'd like to see us have more of that. We have some strange things going on with the infrastructure, because I've had some streets torn up in my neighborhood that were in better shape before they tore them up than repaving them. So I think we need to do a better service with the infrastructure in that regard. And we need to keep on improving the parks. We have the park on 116th and Chambers, but that gets a lot of water that stands in it. So we need to improve those parks so that they can be better utilized, because if it rains or even after just the normal watering, they can't be used for a day or two. So those are some things that I think need to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Huseman?
Thank you. What concerns, if any, do you have about serving on the city council?
I don't really have any. I'm retired, so I have a lot of time.
Great, thank you. Mr. Douglas?
Thank you, Glenn. This last question. What does quality community for a lifetime mean to you?
Quality community for a lifetime?
Yes.
Well, I've spoken to some of that. I think having good educational systems in a community is really important. I think making sure that the community is safe, not only from crime, but also from environmental change and making sure that we do what we can as a community to improve our environment and help others see that we can take a lead in doing that. So we can set examples for other communities and how to improve the environment and the health and safety of the residents of the city. So those are some of the things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I would ask that you take a seat with the other applicants in the audience. I'm going to ask for the council to allow for a 5-minute break. Give everybody a little break for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and get into the next portion, things that you were the last applicant for us to interview. But thank you for applying.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we will take a 5-minute break. Plan to be back out here at 7:45.
I had this one right up there. Nobody was.
I thought that was somebody else.
No, I know. I put the fresh one up there when it started, and nobody took it. So I have a whole bag of them down there.
About halfway through that, I thought, man, I wish I had some more.
Yeah. That one was for you. I know, I did.
I don't think this is going to be as hard as we thought.
All right, everybody, if I could get your attention, we're going to get back into our meeting. First and foremost, I want to thank all of the applicants for taking the time to put your name in the hat and have the desire to do this. But again, please, 9 of you are going to walk away not being on this council. Please don't give up wanting to participate and putting forth effort to better your community. That's very important. So now we're going to vote on which applicant to appoint. Applicants through this process will need a minimum of 5 votes to be appointed. And this could take some time because you might see a lot of 1s and 2s. I don't know what to expect myself. But we'll keep doing this until we narrow it down to one applicant that gets at least 5 votes. And then we'll go from there. But I'll ask the city clerk to distribute the ballots to the city council at this time. Thank you.
And Mayor Ford and Council, if you have any questions about the ballot, please let us know. It's pretty simple, but.
One. Vote for 1. We'll just keep doing it until we end up with someone that has 5.
Councilwoman Frank for Stephen Davis. Councilman Madera for Charles Dukes. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter for Ms. McNeely. Mayor Ford for Stephen Davis. Councilman Mardiola for Mr. Dukes. Councilwoman Elliott for Ms. McNeely. Councilman Douglas for Mr. Noble. Councilman Huseman for Mr. Davis. So Mayor Ford, that results in 3 votes for Mr. Davis. Is that 8, right? Yeah. 3 votes for Mr. Davis, 2 votes for Ms. McNeely, 1 vote for Mr. Noble, and 2 votes for Mr. Dukes. So,
all right.
And no candidates received 5 votes, so we'll proceed to the second round of voting.
Do it again.
And, yeah. That's the tally on the screen.
All righty. Thank you.
For the second ballot, Mr. Douglas votes for Mr. Noble. Mr. Guardiola for Mr. Dukes. Ms. Elliott for Ms. McNeely. Mr. Huseman for Mr. Davis. Mayor Ford for Mr. Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter for Ms. McNeely. Councilman Frank for Mr. Davis. And Councilman Madera for Mr. Dukes. The votes are identical to the first ballot.
Groundhog Day.
So at this point, if council wants to continue with a third ballot, you certainly may. You may also consider having a motion to remove people with the lowest vote from the ballot, or we can try with a third ballot.
I'm going to go to the council. Mr. Teeter?
I would like to see at this point anybody with 1 vote or 0 votes removed.
All right. Mr. Guardiola?
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to eliminate all the applicants that have 1 or no votes to this point. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now we'll have another ballot.
Okay. So for clarity, go ahead. You can go ahead. For clarity, that would be the only votes eligible in this round will be for Mr. Davis, Ms. McNeely, or Mr. Dukes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the third round of voting, Councilman Madera for Mr. Dukes. Councilwoman Frank for Mr. Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter for Ms. McNeely. Mayor Ford for Mr. Davis. Councilman Douglas for Mr. Dukes. Councilman Huseman for Mr. Davis. Councilman Guardiola for Mr. Dukes. Councilwoman Elliott for Ms. McNeely. Mayor Ford, there are 3 votes for Mr. Davis, 2 votes for Ms. McNeely, and 3 votes for Mr. Dukes.
Thank you. All right, is it the council's desire to do another ballot? Mr. Huseman?
Make a motion to have the top 2 proceed to another ballot.
Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Madera?
Second.
I have a motion to take one more ballot with the top 2.
And that would be Mr. Davis and Mr. Dukes.
That's correct. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right. Motion is carried. We will now vote one of the 2, Mr. Davis or Mr. Dukes. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the 4th round of voting, Councilwoman Frank votes for Mr. Davis. Councilman Madera votes for Mr. Dukes. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter votes for Mr. Davis. Mayor Ford votes for Mr. Davis. Councilman Douglas votes for Mr. Dukes. Councilman Huseman votes for Mr. Davis. Councilwoman Elliott votes for Mr. Dukes. And Councilman Guardiola votes for Mr. Dukes. So Mayor Ford, you have a tie, 4-4.
You know, that's why the residents of this community decided to have 9 people on this council, so that wouldn't happen. And just go to figure, it is happening.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Looking for some direction from council on, you want to just do another ballot? You know, we're down to that point.
An option not to disrupt this momentum would be to postpone the continuation of this until the remainder of the agenda has been heard. That's one option. If council doesn't appoint, you have until September 6th under the charter, September 5th rather, to make the appointment, just so council's fully informed. There's a chance that if an appointment is not made, that an election would have to be called under the state municipal elections law. But that's a question for down the road if the appointment doesn't happen by September 5th. But I just want to make sure you are aware of that.
I think we are aware of that, and the downside to postponing this is all the applicants are here tonight. They all put effort into being here, and I would like to not carry this on if we can come to a final decision with this council. So I'm going to recommend that we do another ballot.
Second. Second.
Mr. Teeter seconds that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Yep.
For the fifth ballot, Mayor Ford votes for Mr. Davis. Mr. Douglas votes for Mr. Dukes. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter votes for Mr. Davis. Councilman Huseman votes for Mr. Davis. Councilwoman Elliott votes for Mr. Dukes. Councilman Guardiola votes for Mr. Dukes. Councilwoman Frank for Mr. Davis. And Councilman Madera for Mr. Dukes. The vote is again 4-4.
All right, Mr. Attorney, what are our options?
As before, the options are to continue voting, to postpone the matter to the end of the meeting, to stew on the matter, and conduct the remainder of the business on the agenda, and then to vote on this either at a special meeting to be called before September 5th, or leave the seat vacant and determine whether there is a need to call a special election under the state municipal elections law.
All right, I'm looking for a motion.
And the meeting, the next Monday is the study session for the budget retreat, but I'm sure a special meeting could be called prior to that or during the week before.
All right, thank you. Open for a motion from this council on next step. Mr. Teeter.
Well, this is like it's going to be a stalemate. Looks like it's going to be tough to have anybody change their minds because they want to stay with the candidate they picked originally here. Maybe I can suggest we throw a red and a green in a hat, and whoever pulls out the right colors is going to win. So, but if that's not the option, I'd like to go ahead and go on with the agenda.
Any other council members? Mr. Madera?
I'd like to second moving on with the agenda and revisiting the vote afterwards.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second to continue with the agenda for this evening and then come back to this item at the end of the meeting. Mr. Huseman, do you have a comment on that?
I'm just wondering, is it possible that we can act like a jury and deliberate on vocally with each other, be it in an executive session or in another manner where we can discuss and see if we can't come to a resolution through level-headed thinking and positive discussion?
You know, I would love to answer that question. However, we do have a motion on the floor and a second to take this item up after the end of our agenda. So we need to vote on that first, unless you wish to amend the motion on the floor. Mr. Teeter.
Yes, if that's possible, if we can go, no, it's not possible. Okay.
Mayor Ford, if I just may answer the question briefly. Council could, if this motion is defeated, could actually have public debate on the question of the appointment if there is an option for discussion, but there is transparency in the council policy, and it would have to be discussed in public meeting.
I would agree. None of this, and that's why our names were attached to each vote. Everything has to be transparent in this process. So we cannot have a discussion outside of this room on this agenda item. Or I do have a motion on the floor and a second to take this item up at the end of our council agenda this evening. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion is carried. So we will go into the rest of our agenda. I want to apologize and thank you all for your patience, because this is not an easy process for us, and we are going to take care of our agenda items and then we will come back and discuss the candidacy for this seat. First item on the agenda, or next item on the agenda, is the consent agenda. Citizen communication, thank you. Per council policy, citizen communication is the time on our agenda for the public to address the council on businesses and affairs of the city. The city council is unable to hear any comments on land use matters that are before or may come before council. Please reserve such comments for the appropriate public hearing. Please give your name and address for the record and keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Thank you. Now I'd ask the city clerk, is there anyone on the list to speak during citizen communication? There is none. I will ask, is there anyone in the audience who came here specifically to speak to this council during citizen communication? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll continue with our agenda. We're going to move into the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial. They are presented to council for a single motion and vote. Any member of council may ask to remove a specific item for further discussion excuse me, in a separate vote. Does anyone on council wish to remove an item out of the 2 that are on the consent agenda off of the consent agenda? Mr. Teeter?
Sorry, Mayor.
That's all right. Seeing none, I'm open for a motion on the consent agenda. Mr. Teeter?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Thank you. Mr. Huseman?
Second motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the 2 titles on the consent agenda this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Resolution 2018-63, resolution authorizing award of contract for 2018 slurry seal and asphalt repair project. Resolution 2018-64, resolution authorizing award of contract for 2018 mill and overlay project.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, the consent agenda is approved unanimously this evening by 8 votes, 1 vacant seat. Next item is a public hearing, conditional use permit CU 11818. I will remind council that public hearing portion please is to ask questions, but wait until the public hearing is closed to express opinions or indicate how you will vote. I'm going to now open the public hearing and invite staff forward to give the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. This conditional use permit before you is for a property at 8780 East 93rd Place. This is in the Marty Farms Industrial Subdivision. The applicant is Winslow Crane Company, and they're requesting a conditional use permit to reduce their required FAR. This is a slightly unusual request for you, and I'll explain a little bit in more detail later why you are hearing this instead of the Board of Adjustments. As I mentioned, the zoning of this particular property is PUD. It is in the Marty Farms PUD. This property allows for I3 uses, which is consistent with what the applicant's use needs. The comprehensive plan identifies this property for general industrial purposes, which also aligns with their use. Currently, this is a vacant site, It's bordered by 93rd Avenue to the, or I'm sorry, 93rd Place to the north and Yosemite Street to the east. Yosemite Street is not quite built yet. You can see it will extend along the left side of the picture here when it is constructed across the canal. And then in the distance, you can see the FedEx facility. So just for an idea of what types of development are in this area. Some of the relevant case history for this particular project include the Marty Farms Amendment, PUD Amendment Number 1. This amendment to the PUD included a provision to specifically require a conditional use permit instead of a variance for any deviations from the bulk standards. Bulk standards include the floor area ratio, which is at subject tonight, as well as things like setbacks and height. The purpose of that was to make it a little bit more difficult and more of a challenge for any applicant as a deterrent from not complying with the standards strictly. The property was previously proposed for development by Groendyke in 2014. At that time, they platted the property into a developable lot in Marty Farms Filing 5. And then, as I mentioned, Groendyke was the previously proposing development here, and they did receive a conditional use permit at that time for FAR reduction as well as some setback reductions. So currently, Winslow Crane Service Company is proposing to reduce the floor area ratio from 0.15 to 0.06 in order to build a 27,000 square foot building on the site. This would include administrative offices for the operation itself, as well as work bays for the vehicle maintenance and repair of the cranes, trucks, and other equipment they have on site. As part of the trade-off for a reduced FAR, they are proposing enhanced landscaping and architectural design on the sides of the building that are facing the rights-of-way. So Winslow Crane operates a mobile taxi crane business, serving the complex lifting needs for contractors and industrial operators throughout the Rocky Mountain region. The nature of this type of equipment requires a large amount of space for parking and maneuvering on site. And so this is why they feel that having a reduced building size will allow them to better maneuver around the site. You can see their circulation diagram here and some of the comparative sizes of their equipment and how a large amount of space would be needed in order to enter the site and safely park it or enter the maintenance facility. And so this is the key of their request. As I mentioned earlier, variance requests are traditionally heard by the Board of Adjustments, but since there is specific language in the Marty Farms PUD that you can see here that requires CUP approval, it's gone through the Planning Commission and then here for City Council for final approval. The analysis provided by the Planning Commission stated that as required by the PUD, the applicants provided an additional 5% of landscaping along the streets and has provided further mitigation through the enhanced architecture and strong street presence by placing the building at the corner of Yosemite and 93rd Place, where it will have a strong street presence on both intersections. I mentioned from their landscaping that they are proposing a significant amount over what would normally be required, including street trees and landscaped beds along the roads. And building and parking, the building and employee parking is at the northeast corner where it will be most visible, with the storage areas towards the south and west behind the building. And then a detention pond is in the far southwest corner. These are the elevations for the building. The east side is what will eventually face Yosemite Street when it goes through. So you can see that it has a significant amount of masonry and exceeds the amount required by the Marty Farms PUD. And then the north elevation is what will be facing 93rd Place. So again, it's exceeding what's required by the Marty Farms PUD. As of today, I have not received any responses to public notice regarding this case. And on August 6th, the Planning Commission voted 5-0 to forward this request to City Council with a recommendation for approval. And staff's available to answer any questions you may have about this request, and the applicant is also here to speak and to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions for the staff at this time? Mr. Madera.
Sorry. So My question was about drainage and having issues in the neighborhood before. Is there any drainage improvements, like retention or anything like that? I saw something as far as wastewater from washing and separating oils and sands and that type of nature, but what about just drainage in general?
As you mentioned, they do have a couple of wash facilities on the site. You can see here, no, you can't see. Just to the south of the building, there is a small wash area where they have to wash the equipment in order to be able to inspect it for safety purposes. So it's a key part of their operation. They do have a drain installed that is meeting all of South Adams County Water and Sanitation District's requirements to keep the sand and oil away from the actual water supply. So that is compliant and meeting all of their standards. They also have a stormwater drainage detention pond at the south corner of the site, the large triangle that's down there. So that is intended to serve this entire site, since the majority of the rest of it is recycled asphalt or some other type of pavement. It meets all of the standards that are required by our Public Works Department, and their drainage report has been approved. They're also working through the process with FRICO in order to make sure that that detention pond is not impacting the canal at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council for staff at this time? Seeing none, the applicant is present. Like to come forward, add any additional information to the presentation that our staff has done, and then we'll ask the council to ask questions of the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor Ford. My name is Willie Plessman. I'm here tonight to represent Winslow Crane Service Company. Would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Right. Does the council have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Huseman.
Good evening. I have just one question. Are you guys relocating from Inglewood, or are you just expanding your operations within the Front Range?
No, we are relocating from Inglewood. The site that we presently occupy there is slated for HUD urban development, so we had a fixed amount of time that we could be there, so we needed a new home. So when we sought out to find a new home, we looked for a place where we could continue to grow our business, thus needing more acreage. We presently operate off of a 5-acre piece. This particular piece allowed us the opportunity to have a little bit extra room to grow the business.
Great. Well, thank you, and welcome to Commerce City.
Any other questions for the applicant? Councilwoman Frank.
I'm sure this was probably said somewhere, but about how many employees would be employed at this facility?
So, Councilman Frank, we at the facility today we have about 20 administrative and operative staff that would work there at the facility. In addition, we have today about 30 employees that really work off-site with our equipment, and that equipment can stay at job sites from days to weeks to months. So day to day, we have roughly 20 people that come and go from the facility, and then depending on workload, there's a few more in and out. But we've really designed a facility that would be in harmony with the area, fits very well with the area, but also brought the opportunity to have room for growth. When you look at the wage rates for an experienced crane operator, they are very well paying jobs. So we will look to bring some more of those to the Commerce City area.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
You had a question?
You have one, Steve?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Douglas.
Thank you. Being a crane company, the size of your structures, will that cause any traffic issues? As far as, because there's some crane companies that have some cranes that can really tall areas, and of course they need assistance when using the local roads and the highways. Will there be any issues with your crane company?
Councilman Douglas, no, sir, there would not. We've done a traffic survey to look at the traffic that would come and go from the site, and really find that our use is less than what was originally projected in the traffic studies for the area. And since we operate a mobile taxi type crane business, those cranes tend to be some of the smaller, more mobile cranes, which would not be an impact.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on the matter before us? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm open for a motion. Mr. Hughesman.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission on case CU-118-18.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission on case CU-118-18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now I'm open for a motion to approve the conditional use permit. Mr. Madera.
Move to approve the conditional use permit CU 118-18.
Thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit CU 118-18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We look forward to your business in our community. All right, Administrative Council business. City Council, does anybody have any Administrative Council business? Seeing none, we are down to dealing with this appointment. It's the end of our agenda, and Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. At this point, we've obviously had 5 rounds of ballots, and you're at a deadlock of 4-4. This is an opportunity if council wanted to engage in some respectful deliberation on the dais, and then go through another ballot, or immediately try another ballot right now. And then if the results aren't conclusive, consider an alternate method such as a coin flip where council agrees on the method. If everybody agrees that the person who wins the coin flip, well, then there will be a motion to appoint that person, and there'll be general agreement on that. And or postponement to another meeting. So that's where you are right now, with the last option being leaving the seat vacant and determining then what happens.
All right. What are the desires of council? Mr. Teeter.
I think it's worth our effort to take another ballot vote.
Okay. Mr. Madera?
I'd like to take the time to discuss the candidates and just what everyone's thinking, because I think, we kind of have a good problem right now because we have 2 excellent candidates, and either one that we choose tonight is going to be a great addition to this council. So I think it would be helpful to get everyone's thoughts and deliberate a little bit further out in the public, and that way we can maybe move one way or the other and make some movement rather than just taking ballots and being in deadlocks all night. I think we're definitely going to have to talk about this and see where everyone's coming from, what their thoughts are, and why they think their candidate is the best candidate.
All right, I've got 2 suggestions. Mr. Attorney?
I would make one other alternative, the city manager, and I just mentioned that you do have 8 other candidates who you've removed based on the ballot before. If someone wanted to reconsider a person on a ballot and the majority of council supported that would be another option, that maybe there would be a compromise candidate.
And the rationale there being, is it possible that there is a second choice of at least 5 of you that might prevail? If not, then that would not be worth trying. But you would know until you tried it, I guess.
All right, back to you, Mr. Teeter.
Okay, I still like to just give it one more shot. It's worth that try. If that doesn't work, then we can go to Mr. Medeiros.
All right, you were first, and I allowed Mr. Madera to put his 2 cents in, but at this point, I'm looking for a motion. You want to make that in a form of a motion?
Yes, I'll make that as motion.
All right, is there a second to that motion? To take another ballot. Mr. Madera?
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second to go through with another ballot. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Looks like we're going to do another ballot. Motion's carried.
Thank you.
For the 6th round of voting, Councilwoman Frank votes for Mr. Davis. Councilman Madera votes for Mr. Dukes. Mayor Pro Tem Teeter votes for Mr. Davis. Mayor Ford votes for Mr. Davis. Councilman Douglas votes for Mr. Dukes. Councilman Huseman votes for Mr. Davis. Councilwoman Elliott votes for Mr. Dukes. And Councilman Guardiola votes for Mr. Dukes. The vote is tied 4-4.
All right. Now I'm looking to Mr. Madera to make a motion.
I'd like to move into deliberation to discuss the candidates that we have left and get everyone's thoughts.
Is there a second to that, Mr. Teeter? Second. I have a motion and a second to deliberate about the 2 potential applicants at this point in time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. All right. Waiting for someone to light their light up. Mr. Madera.
Like I said earlier, if you go back to the responses that these 2 candidates had, they both gave excellent answers, and I think they touched on a lot of issues and opportunities that we have here in the city, as well as, how they're suited to address these. And they both bring a unique set of skills that they have to offer this council. We have one who's been in service, military. He's been a police chief, so he's been involved in city government as an employee for many, many years. You have another who has been involved in all levels of government, been involved in education, and currently works for another municipal entity. So, they both have a lot to offer. I think for me, what kind of brought it down was, what did the people vote in to fill this seat originally? And I look at the experiences that Paulo had and the experiences that our candidates have to offer. And what I saw in Mr. Dukes was he has a strong educational background. He's been involved in a lot of nonprofit and volunteer type organizations. He's representative of our community, being a young family man. And so that's kind of where I was going when I was voting for Mr. Dukes is, what's representative of the community? What did the voters vote for originally, and how does that reflect on our candidates and what they have to offer the city?
Thank you, Mr. Madera. Mr. Huseman.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had the opportunity to speak to both the candidates. I respect both of them very much. I appreciate Mr. Dukes with his involvement, especially on our Culture Council. Was there in the interview when we appointed him to that, and do respect and appreciate his commitment to the city. When it came to the answers he provided, though, some of the biggest concerns that I had, and the reason why I'm struggling to throw my vote that direction, is a majority of his challenges and opportunities is based on education. And we are not the school board. We are the city council. We have found through some of the meetings we've had with the school boards that it's very difficult to try to enact the changes that we would like to see in our local school districts to provide that better education. And I think that Mr. Dukes would be better suited as a representative on that school board where he has that firsthand knowledge and can put that use in the appropriate body to make changes to education. So that's why I've leaned my vote towards Mr. Davis, who I feel has a little bit more alignment with what we do on the city council. He has experience dealing with a city government and understanding how local government operates. So that's why I've thrown my support towards that direction.
Mr. Teeter.
Yes, I'm basically what Mr. Huseman just said is why the same reason why I voted for Mr. Davis. Mr. Duke's answers were all directed mainly at the school system. That is, I think we're doing as much as we can do to help the school district right now. And if somebody would come forward and ask us to do something else that we thought would be beneficial to help the school district, we would also, I'm sure, step forward and do that. And that is the other reason why I voted for Mr. Davis is his background. So thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Douglas.
Yes, thank you. And I myself know both these candidates. And I think both would serve well, but also look at what Paulo served, what his boards and commissions were, and one of them was 27J, and he was on that committee there. And so whoever takes that position is going to fill Paulo's those commitments to start out with. You know, and being on the interview committee, we also have opportunity to put people on boards, commissions, and that just like our community, more diverse. And I think we really need to, here's an opportunity to select someone of color to serve in that seat. And he lives in a community, and that's, you know, that's the hard part, is making those decisions. I know there's a split 4-4. And I also look at the youth. I mean, as far as, I'm not looking at age or anything like that, but just the commitment that Mr. Dukes has already put forward by not only interviewing for this, but he also serves on one of our boards. So it is a tough decision. I know Mr. Davis, I spoke to him last week, and his background is great in military and government, police department. And, you know, it's some of my struggles is just trying to figure out where should our city go. This is going to be a 16-month appointment. And, you know, what's that going to look like? A person who's going to get the seat and then run for it when the time comes to that opportunity next year. So, and then, you know, of course, all our citizens are watching and listening too, and we got to make sure we're looking at everyone, not just for now. So that's where I sit.
Mr. Guardiola.
Thank you. You know, we have a really good problem here with two outstanding candidates, and when I looked at the applications or heard the interviews, I kind of also looked at what Paulo entailed and the diversity that Paulo brought, not only just in race but we just got a study of our medium age in the Northern Range and in the core city. And who are we going to have represent that northern range? And right now it's the medium age of 32. So I looked at that. I think it starts with education. And many of you guys know I'm in the education field. And we're not the school board, and we're not the Board of Education, but having that in our mentality and having that the big picture, this year we put it in our goals, education, and we all agreed on that. Mr. Dukes brings all of that. Plus, housing, families, and everything else. And then I looked at all the applicants that talked today. The majority talked about youth and education. So something in that ward, education and youth, is important. Mr. Davis, amazing resume. I mean, it's a hard decision. It really, really is. But I think if we have the mentality of city as education, we value education regardless if we can make those systems or those votes. And we have that, our city will grow because we have that in the back of our head. So that's why I'm leaning towards Mr. Dukes. The amount of experience, not only in education, but federal and state and local that he brings, we're going to be thinking outside the box. And we've said that over and over to this council. Let's think outside the box. So that's why I'm voting for Mr. Dukes.
Thank you. Any others? All right, I'm going to say a few things. First of all, last thing I want to do is pit one candidate against another with this council. I think that's extremely important. And I've heard it said several times that we have two great candidates that we're trying to decide between. I will tell you, we had a lot of great candidates in this room tonight. Every one of them could serve the city well. So that part of it was not the hard part. It's the fact that you have so many good candidates. And I think it was kind of ironic that both of these candidates I haven't spent any time with. I know I've said hello, but not really knowing who they are. And I think for me, that's what's the toughest about this decision, is we have to come in here, and this is a job that we all have taken on that's extremely serious. And I've devoted a lot of my life to this community. And we have to make a decision in just a couple hours out of 10 great candidates to pick one that we have to believe is going to do the best that they can for our community. And so I understand the process of why Mr. Madero wanted us to talk about the individual candidates. I think they're both very good candidates, and I would be thrilled to work with either one of them. But I would also be thrilled to work with any of the others that were before us tonight as well. This makes the process that much tougher for this council. I know I've heard the discussion about education, and I know the passion that Mr. Guardiola has with education, especially on District 14's end. I don't think there's a single council member up here that would debate the fact that there are problems, and we have to do everything we can, not just as a city council, but as a community, to fix the educational system with District 14. But I think we also need to get supportive and help align 27J to our community's needs as well. So education is a huge piece, Mr. Guardiola, and I appreciate your passion. I also sit back and I think about the fact that we just went through a major process with the Department of Justice. We talked about things like reports that were not done fairly or that were criticized on sex assaults in this community. And I remember the stacks that came out and were put in front of us. And I know some of you weren't here at the time. And at that point in time, I truly wish that I had someone on the council with a background of being a chief of police and being in the public safety realm. Out of all the candidates I heard tonight, I sat here listening to your comments, to everybody's comments, and I will tell you that education and safety came up a lot. And I've been sitting here trying to decide which came up more and what's more important. And as the mayor, I have to really do my best to try to balance my opinion and not take a side on this issue, because this is, I wouldn't have done it to any of you. And so I know your hearts are in the right place, and I know the candidates' hearts are in the right place. And so I agree, we have a deadlock, and I don't know that sitting here and critiquing one versus the other will help the situation. So I actually didn't expect this to happen tonight, but it has, and I'm open to more discussion if this council feels that this type of discussion is helping to make a decision. But for me, I truly feel that the only way that I will be able to come off this deadlock is to ask the city council to allow for an opportunity to have a reception or something of some kind where we can have an opportunity to be around these two fine citizens with their families and be able to casually communicate so that we can get a better idea of who these two people are. I need that maybe more than the rest of you do, because I do not know either one of them at any level. And that to me, you know, just trying to pull something out of your gut and say, let's pick one. I truly would like to get to know both of them a little bit better before I have to choose and potentially make the wrong decision. So that would be my recommendation. But I'm going to open the floor up to this council for more discussion, because that's what was recommended. If you think it's helping, if you don't think it's helping, I'm open to other options. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I don't think we're going to change our minds. I think it's to the point now, maybe like was discussed earlier, that we maybe come down to the coin flip or whatever the case may be.
Anyone else? Mr. Hughesman.
Was that a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
All right. My concern is in a week we sit down for a budget retreat to plan our 2019 budget. And so I don't see how we're going to be able to have the full council voice if we don't seat somebody this evening for that retreat. So I'm going to second the motion from Mayor Pro Tem that we do a coin flip.
All right, I have a motion and a second to flip a coin. I see Mr. Madera's light is on. Do you have discussion on the motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know, for me, I just don't like leaving things up to chance. You know, I'd rather be informed and do my research, and, you know, I don't think we would ever come and just flip a coin on a decision that we make here in council. So I think that what the mayor proposed and getting to know these candidates a little bit better, whether it be through some kind of forum or special meeting, or, you know, something that we can arrange in the legal setting. I see Robert grimacing over there. And, rather than just flip a coin, I know it's not easy, and the easy way out would be to flip a coin and be done with it, go home to our families tonight, but that's not why we were elected onto this council. We were elected to make the tough decisions, and that's what we have to do tonight.
Mr. Guardiola?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Oscar. I think we owe it to them not to flip a coin and do the recommendation that the mayor did. I just wouldn't feel comfortable to flip a coin.
All right, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion before I call for the vote? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
I need a show of hands. All in favor? Roll call would be even better.
What's the motion?
It's your motion is to flip a coin.
Yes.
That is the motion that we are voting on. All right, so we will not be flipping a coin. I don't do this very often, but I'm going to make a motion. I want to move that this council have staff put together an opportunity, it can be out here in the atrium, for no later than Wednesday of this week to be able to at least talk to these folks in a comfortable setting and get to know them a little bit. And then I'd ask for a special meeting the following evening after we do that. And that way we can meet Mr. Huseman's concern about seating somebody before we get into the budget. Mr. McBroom.
I'll wait until there's a second, and then I have a
I'm waiting for
question.
a second, too. Mr. Madera.
Second.
I have a second to the motion. Now go ahead.
My suggestion would be for city council, maybe with some input from the two candidates, pick an evening tonight. So before you leave, decide either tomorrow night or Wednesday night. The easiest way to check everybody's schedules is to have you all weigh in while you're here.
And given the limitations of the open meetings law and requirements for 24-hour notice, if you were to set the meeting tonight, we'd have to run out and set it for 9 o'clock on Tuesday night.
That leaves Wednesday night as the only option.
Well,
if you do it by
and
Wednesday.
so, as the motion maker, I'm just trying to limit the situation in time so that we can get that council person seated. But I would be flexible, and I'd like to ask permission of the council to allow both of the candidates to come forward and let us know if they have some availability, and give us a little bit from them. And that, I think we've been neglectful of actually asking the two candidates to come forward, and I would like to hear from each of them, given our dilemma. Is the council okay with having them come forward? I'm looking for head nods at this point.
Yes.
All right, could I ask both candidates to come forward, please? All right, this is going to be a fair fight. Get ready to rumble. I'm just kidding. I appreciate you both being here and for being here as long as you have, and with the desires that you have. But I would like to hear from you as to your preference based on the motion that's on the floor.
I think we agreed on Wednesday night will work.
Yeah, I'm very flexible. I own my own company, so I will work. If it's good with you, it's good with me.
So if we put something together Wednesday night, I'm just trying to make it easy, like here in the atrium, they can get some lemonade and cookies or something, and bring your families down, and we can visit for a little bit, and just try to get to know each other. I think would be very helpful if you're both comfortable with that process.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I'm trying to look for something that's fairer than a flip of a coin.
It works
Yes,
for
sir.
all of you. It works for me.
Yeah.
Yep, both of you are fine with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
just what time were you thinking?
You know what?
No, Dr. Cobb.
There's no Dr. Cog this Wednesday?
Right.
So Rick will be
Normally,
there.
I'm gone on Wednesday nights, Dr. Cog, but this month, our retreat is this coming weekend, and that's where I'll be.
All right, now let me hear from the council members. Mr. Huesman?
On the calendar, it does have an AdCog sub-regional forum. Has that been canceled?
Oh, yes. I will have to be at that, or Michelle.
Well, I guess Michelle will have to do that one for you, huh? That's the downside. Anybody else have a conflict?
I have one on, yes, I have one on Thursday. We're going to come back the next day.
On Thursday? On
So
Thursday?
I would propose that if we're going to meet on Wednesday, that we have a vote, come back on the 27th and vote, because we're,
That's fine. I have a respectful amendment to the motion, which would be to get together on Wednesday. What's timing-wise, the city shuts down at 5, 6 o'clock, 6:30, somewhere in there is probably respectful. Hopefully that's respectful to both candidates. 6:30, 7 o'clock, I don't know, 6:30. And then spend a couple hours, make it for an hour and a half, 2 hours of opportunity to visit. And then I'll call for a special meeting for Wednesday night at 8:30. And we'll come in here and we'll make a decision. Is that better for everybody that would have conflicts? I know Mayor Pro Tem is the only odd man out, but he's going to have to miss that AdCog meeting. So is that acceptable to the two candidates?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Now, I have a motion, a second on the floor. All those, do you have an amendment to the motion?
I do.
Okay.
Could we actually amend that to be at Buffalo Run, where we may be able to partake in some
All right, I have a
BYOB?
formal amendment to not have it be here in the atrium, to be at Buffalo Run, timing-wise, to be able to come in here and have it televised and be able to do our job at 8:30 would be tough.
You're right, my bad.
All right, you gonna pull your motion?
I pull my amendment.
Or your amendment? Thank you. All right. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion or amendments that need to be made? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Looks like we'll see both of you fellas Wednesday night, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you.
Thank you.
So have a great evening, and probably good to get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel I already should.
Yeah, good.
We were going to do
All
a
right.
coin flip.
Yeah. All right, thank you, guys. All right, we come to the report section of our meeting. Mr. McBroom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No report beyond the city manager report that was sent out last Tuesday.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Sheasley.
I have no report other than to say I'll be working with all of you on revising Council Policy 21 to clear up some issues on the appointment for vacancies. But I do sincerely want to thank all of you for professionally and respectfully going through this process. I think it reflected well on the council for what it's worth.
I've sat on this council for the city in this capacity for a long time. And there is nothing harder than seeing 10 exceptional candidates and having to pick in a couple of hours after 6 questions to decide who's the right person for the job. And so that part of it, I hate. I think it's a terrible process. I wish we could have got to know all 10 of them because, but I understand, time restraints, it's terrible. We're coming up on the budget. We need another body, and but I also don't want to force something that shouldn't be forced. So thank you. All right. National Night Out, I have to mention it. Our police did an exceptional job for this community. They were out and about at most of these National Night Out events. I want to thank our residents that showed up to support our police department and participate in National Night Out events. Several of the resident groups and church groups got together at Pioneer Park. Was a large gathering, but there were gatherings in almost every neighborhood in Commerce City. So thank you to our Commerce City Police Department and the effort that they go through to make sure that they visit with our residents and they feel safe and transparent through that process. Of course, I've been attending Rotary as the president. That's not been an easy role, but I'm getting through it. And we've gotten through most of our fundraisers, and we do have September 11th we have the rec center at Bison Ridge reserved for a Veterans Day dinner, which I think anybody that wants to attend should attend, and especially veterans in our community. Our Rotary Club has, for the last year and a half, we are working towards mental health issues in our community, and it has now spread through Rotary clubs all over the United States. Our students that are in Interact, which is a Rotary program through District 14, did a video presentation about mental health awareness for teens. And it was amazing because it was these kids that acted out a scenario where their friend didn't feel like he belonged and went home and committed suicide. And it was really hard for these kids to put that video together. However, because of that video, our Rotary Club won a national competition for a grant of $10,000 to go back into the Interact Club to help continue working towards mental health awareness. And I go to Rotary every Wednesday, and we talk about it, and it's a pretty close-knit, tight-knit group. But I think it's important to come here at my job at City Hall and let the council and let the community and citizens know that are watching that there are programs out there. If you identify somebody that is in need of mental health services, that we have programs in our community to help folks with those dilemmas. And Rotary actually partners with a health organization that provides training to identify mental health needs with folks in our community. So pay attention to that. But the Veterans Dinner, a lot of that revolves around mental health, especially with our military folks that are coming home that need some additional help. So that dinner will be September 11th, and I can get anybody that wants additional information on time and everything else, that information. But it's a great dinner, and look forward to making it even better this year than it was last year. And I'm glad that we will be hosting it at our new rec center. Next, 7-Eleven grand opening. Chambers and 104 or 120th and Chambers. I need to make a special announcement. That is in Commerce City.
Right.
Just so everybody knows.
That was Shell. Oh, no.
Oh, Santiago's.
Santiago.
I'm going to mention that one too. Is in Commerce City.
Yes, it is.
So for anybody that is watching that doesn't understand or identify with that, and I run into a lot of residents that are on the north side of 120th Avenue in Outlook, that is Commerce City. You are not in Brighton. You are in Commerce City. I ran into some folks that lived there for 6 years, and they were telling me, "You're the mayor of Commerce City?" God, you know, there's a lot of good things going on in Commerce City. I live right across the street from Commerce City. I live in this Outlook development. And it took me another half hour to convince them that they did not live in Brighton. They do live in Commerce City. Santiago's and the Shell, that is in Commerce City. We have both sides of 120th up to Tower Road. There is some unincorporated, some stuff that hasn't been incorporated that is on the north side once you get past the city's property that we have for detention facility for our drainage system, which is where our city clerk lives, is right there. So I think it's important that the residents know where our boundaries are. And there is one corner on that intersection that currently sits in the city limits of Brighton. And that is the northwest corner of 120th and Chambers is in Brighton. The other three corners are in Commerce City. And we have had discussions, and we will continue to have discussions. And I know our management team is working towards a plan with Brighton. They have no way to get water and sewer to that property for development. So we are looking at potentially trading them some pieces that make more sense, that are in Commerce City that would make more sense to be in Brighton, and getting some of those in trade that would be beneficial to retail services for our community. So the other three corners you will see moving towards development. The two are almost done with the first pieces of development, but there's more to come. So congratulations to 7-Eleven. Very nice store. They had a nice opening. Look forward to the opening, the grand opening anyway, of the Shell and the Santiago's. Neighborhood outreach. We had our last neighborhood outreach over the last couple of weeks, and most of the council attended that outreach. Great opportunity for residents to come and engage in different opportunities for the city. I think, you know, with the questions that were posed tonight and talking about north and south and how do we tie all that together, it's something that we've been working on for years, and we continue to work on it. But that's why we try to have neighborhood outreach in the northern area, neighborhood outreach down here. And it's not just to have the people in the south come to the neighborhood outreach in the south and the ones in the north to go there. We want everyone to go to both, because that's the whole intent, is to get you out of your comfort zone and get you to cross that imaginary separation between the two parts of our community. The Employee Appreciation Barbecue was this last week. That is an event that I have been very hesitant to miss, ever. I take a lot of pride in going to that. It's the opportunity for us to thank our employees and show our support for all of that they do for our residents. And this year I was not able to attend because at the same time as the Rotary Club meeting, and I'm the president and could not get out of it. So I want to thank all the council members and the staff that did attend the Employee Appreciation Barbecue. And I want to tell all the employees that I truly appreciate them, regardless whether I was there or not. And we'll make it up somehow at some time. But just because I wasn't there doesn't mean you're not appreciated. And thankfully, I know some of the council members were there. And then, last but not least, I want to talk about the Poor Tap House and Anchor CrossFit. Some folks that put together a business in our community had Anchor CrossFit at 104th and Highway 2 in the Turnberry Marketplace. Built a new facility, opened up a new Anchor CrossFit facility. We got to go and take a tour of the Anchor CrossFit, which I found out that I'm not as good at pull-ups as I used to be. I didn't even want to touch the, what do they call them, medicine balls and the tires and the ropes that you flop around on the ground. So it just was kind of disappointing to me, but not because they don't have a good facility, just because I got older and something happened in the time in between. So I resorted to go to their business next door, which we had a tour of, and is the new Pour House, Tap House, right? It's called a Pour Tap House, and I love the name, but they have, what is it, 37? 30 craft beers on tap. And you know what? A great husband and wife couple that are working that together. I really think a lot of our residents will enjoy the opportunity to go and try some craft beers and have a venue. Growing up in this community my entire life, we just didn't have a lot of opportunities for sports bar, tap house, you know, that kind of stuff has been lacking. And I heard a lot of our candidates tonight talk about entertainment, restaurants. I grew up here, and I can tell you what, when I was 16, we had more restaurants in this community than we do today. And the lack of restaurants isn't because of a lack of desire from this council. We are working diligent, and there will be more to come, and there are things in the pipeline that our residents will be proud to have in this community. But private development is private. We can incentivize, and we can try to bring them here, but closing that deal has been rather tough. But now that we're in the 50,000 plus range in population, to now have, and I think statistically, average age 32 years old, with a population over 50,000, you need to have a place to go have a beer. And you know, back in the day, I would be hesitant to say that up here, but I watched Councilwoman Carson was her number one thing. Where can we go have a beer? There's no place to have a beer. You can't even get a beer at Dion's. So I would encourage everybody to go and support a brand new business, the Pour Tap House. And nice place, good beer, good company, and I think it will start changing. You know, we're getting stuff slowly. It's not fast enough for me or our residents, but we're getting stuff. So bear with us. We have the same concerns and the same desires as our residents do, and we want what you want. So stay tuned. More to come.
I want to touch on that third building.
The third building.
The third open one.
Yeah, when they built the Pour Tap House and they built the Anchor CrossFit, there is a space that is unoccupied at this time that may at some point in time be just right for a sit-down restaurant. And we'll see how that works out, but I'm not going to go any further before the attorney cuts me off. So stop there. All right. Does any council members wish to add to my report? Mr. Huseman.
Thank you. Actually, I just wanted to make a request. Last night, one of our residents posted a link to the survey on oil and gas in Commerce City that is on the oil and gas website to social media. And one of the residents questioned, is that a valid Commerce City survey that is being done? So maybe if Digital Communications could push that survey out on social media so people do know that that is available for them to submit their opinions on oil and gas operations within the city, and they will know that it is in fact being administered by the city as opposed to somebody who has a hidden agenda that they're trying to conceal with our logo. So.
Ryan, do you have any answers to that? Or Robert? All right. All righty. Anyone else have anything to add to my report? Seeing none, I want to thank this council for bearing with tonight. I know it hasn't been easy. It's one of the tougher things that we have to do. I want to thank all of the applicants that showed up tonight, but I want to congratulate the two runner-ups and look forward to getting to know you, and I would love to get to know some of the other applicants that I don't know either. So with that said, have a great night, and we are adjourned.
Oh, wait, I have a motion to reinstate all the candidates for the little thing going on.